Hello everyone, and welcome to this video on how to install Git on Windows. In this video, first we'll go through the installation process, then we'll verify it by initializing a Git project. We'll also cover how to customize PowerShell to work with Git repositories. To install Git, what you need to do is go to git-scm.com and download the 64-bit Windows installer. Once the download is finished, run the installer, and we might want to change one or two options. In the window that selects components, make sure to check the options for Windows Explorer integration. This adds the Open Git Bash Here option to the Windows right-click menu, which is a convenient way to quickly open a project folder in the Git Bash shell. When choosing the default editor, it's recommended to pick Visual Studio Code. However, you need to have it installed on your computer. If not, you have two options: cancel the setup, install VS Code, and run the setup again, or continue with the VI editor and change the default editor after installation. And for the rest of the installation, continue with the default options. Now that the installation is complete, it's time to run your first command. For this, you can use either PowerShell or Git Bash, which is more optimized for Git. The first command we're going to run is git ---- version. This will show the installed Git version on your computer. All right, we've successfully installed Git, but we need to do some configuration before committing to any repository. What we need to do is set the username and email. We'll also change the name of the default branch. By default, it's called master, but we'll change it to main. Git configuration can be done at 3 different levels. The first is the system level, which affects all users on the computer. The second is the global level, which is a user-level configuration and affects all repositories created under that user. The third is the local level, which can be applied to each repository individually. Configuration done at the local level affects only that specific repository. Usually we don't bother with system-level configuration. What we do is set the global configuration, which applies to all repositories under the current user. Then, if needed, we can override those global settings at the local level for specific repositories. Now let's configure our global settings. But first, let's check the current global configuration by running the command git config ---- global ---- list. Right now, the only configuration set is the default editor, so let's set the username by typing git config ---- global user.name followed by the username you want to use. Next, we'll set the email by typing git config ---- global user.email followed by the email you want to associate with your Git projects. Finally, we'll set the default branch to main so that all future repositories will use main as the default branch. And that's all we need for now. Let's verify our global configuration. Great, we can see that our configuration has been set. Now let's create a Git repository to make sure everything is working properly. Here I've got a folder called Project 1, and I'm going to turn it into a Git project. First, we need to open a terminal and navigate to the folder we want to turn into a Git project. If you want to double-check where you are, you can type pwd to see your current working directory. So I'm inside the project folder now. The first command I'm going to run is git status to check the current state. The command shows that this isn't a Git repository yet. So next we'll initialize a Git project by running git init. The command has run and Git has initialized the repository. What also happened is that Git created a hidden folder called .git. Let me show you by opening File Explorer and enabling hidden files. There is the .git folder, It holds the entire Git database for this project. Now that we've initialized the repository, let's make our first commit. First, we'll add our files to the staging area with the git add command. Then we'll commit them to the history using git commit. What we did here is add the current state of this folder to our version history. To check the version history, we can run the git log command. As you can see, it shows we have one commit in our version history. If you prefer using PowerShell or Windows Terminal instead of Git Bash, you might want to add some configuration to your PowerShell profile. This is because, unlike Git Bash, PowerShell doesn't display the branch you're working on by default. To display the branch name in your PowerShell prompt, you'll first need to install the posh-git module. Next, we need to add the following code block to our PowerShell profile. If you're not sure where your profile file is located, you can find out by running the command $profile. If the folder doesn't exist, you might need to create it first. After that, open the file in a text editor and add this code block. One more thing, you need to configure the execution policy to run scripts. If it's set to restricted, the profile script won't run. So, set the execution policy to either remote signed or bypass. Now we'll restart the PowerShell console. As you can see, the branch name is now displayed at the end of the prompt. Before we finish, let me quickly show you how to display git command help. First off, if you type git without any other options, it will show you the basic syntax and some commonly used git commands. If you want help with a specific command, like if I want to see all the options for the git log command, I can type git log -h. However, this might not show all the options. To see everything for the git log command, I can type git log --help. In Windows, this will open the full man page in your default web browser. And that's it for this video on how to install Git on Windows. If you found it helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.